In the vibrant city of Jos, Narette Powell, a spirited tailor, is known not by her name, but as Miss 45, a title sung mockingly by the women at Farragut Market. Despite her dreams of a peaceful family life, her single status at 45 becomes the town's favorite gossip, with neighbors and family alike meddling in her love life. When a charming new neighbor, De Chung, arrives from Abuja, whispers of romance swirl, but so do rumors of his secret engagement. Narette navigates a whirlwind of suitors, sharp-tongued gossip, and her mother's relentless matchmaking, all while guarding her heart. Will she defy the label of Miss 45 and find love on her own terms? Long ago, in the lovely city of Jos, resided a lady named Narette Powell prior to the time when the females at Farragut Market began chanting her age as though it were a melody. Narette was simply an intelligent young girl who enjoyed the chilly early mornings and the aroma of grilled corn close to terminus. She informed anyone who inquired that she intended to create a family existence filled with tranquility. However, 45 years afterward, individuals ceased addressing her by her name and began addressing her by her age, to the extent that whenever she passed by, somebody would remark, "Good afternoon, Miss 45." And someone else would contribute, "She's still extremely single like a Pringle." The kids greeted her in the identical manner as well, since children imitated whatever they overheard. Her mother, Magna Powell, thought that matrimony was a sacred duty, and therefore she would rush into Narette's tailoring store wearing a headscarf, prepared for confrontation. She would utter statements such as, "My daughter, a woman cannot remain in an unused fridge forever." At some stage, someone has to open the door and take out happiness. Narette would roll her eyes and respond, "Mama, if joy is stored in a refrigerator, then it will be chilly, and you know I prefer cold affection." Her mother would let out a sigh and declare to whoever was listening that she had endured hardships in this life. And then she would pull Narette along to a mountain prayer gathering where a very stern usher would instruct them to kneel on stones, and the breeze would whip everyone's faces. The prayer guide would yell, "Every postponement in this family, shatter." And Narette would reply, "Amen," since she had been raised properly. But right after they descended from the hill, she would grumble to her mother, "If God wishes to rescue me, he knows my location in Royfield. The angels can come knocking. They don't have to pursue me over rocks." Her sister, Rhoda, worsened the situation with affection that resembled spice. Rhoda would rush into Narette's home accompanied by 4 kids and a sack of recommendations. "Big sis, your issue is straightforward. You do not respond to messages quickly, and men dislike that. Additionally, you chuckle excessively when you're anxious, and your chuckling is overly noisy." Narette would gaze at her and state, "I am not a generator. My laughter does not require a soundproof enclosure." Nevertheless, her friend Mimido was the sole individual who could mock her without causing harm. She would perch on her store counter, dangling her legs, and remark, "Miss 45, if you do not wed soon, I will produce T-shirts and launch a drive for suitable males." And Narette would chuckle and respond, "Produce the T-shirt, but ensure the sleeves are lengthy so that the members don't grab the husband before he reaches me." On a specific morning, Narette was in her store when Madame Kanyang, her neighbor who handled all rumors within a 1-kilometer area, arrived at her store to deliver news. "Good afternoon, Miss 45. I heard a new resident is arriving from Abuja. He is an attractive man with a billionaire's bed. I hope you greet him as a neighbor ought to." Narette grinned and replied, "I always greet new individuals in the compound. I even provide them with water." Nevertheless, Madame Kanyang was not content with the response she received, so she attempted once more. "This one is a serious gentleman. I heard he appears capable of bearing a woman's fate with one hand." Narette nodded. "That sounds burdensome. Let him bear his own first." Madame Kanyang made a hissing sound and departed because Narette was dampening her rumor enthusiasm. Right at that moment, Mimido leaned into the entrance and mocked, "Get ready for this one. An attractive gentleman is arriving. Women won't leave him alone. They will soon convert your veranda into a set for a romantic film." Narette rolled her eyes and remarked, "If they bring a movie, I'll bring popcorn to observe." At last, that evening, the new neighbor showed up. His name was Dechung. He greeted the compound in a cheerful manner, and when he reached Neret's door, he stated, "Good evening. I hope you don't mind directing me to the water faucet." Neret directed him to the faucet. She pointed out the spot to place his bucket, and even the quicker path to the primary road. He expressed gratitude to her, but as she turned to leave, Neret's mother emerged out of nowhere, examined him like a paper, and then she inquired, "Young man, are you wedded?" He blinked and chuckled, "No, ma." She inquired once more, "How old are you?" And he replied, 47. Magna turned to her daughter victoriously and shouted loudly, "He's older. This is very biblical." But Neret covered her face and pleaded for the earth to engulf her, while Dechung, who possessed etiquette, acted as if he hadn't heard. Later that evening, Maida, the compound security guard, knocked and declared, "There will be a brief gathering tomorrow because the well requires fixing." But before he departed, he added, "Welcome to Dechung." And Madame Cagnon grinned slyly and added, "Welcome to romance." The other females chuckled, but Neret pardoned herself and went indoors. Precisely 2 weeks following Dechung's arrival, Rhoda showed up with a minor surprise disguised as a meal. She arrived very early carrying a bowl of masa. She set the bowl on the table, pretended an innocent expression, and stated, "I brought food and one minor idea. Today, I want us to resolve this issue permanently." And before Neret could flee, 2 males were already seated in her living room. The first was Mr. Pam Sundong, a merchant with a ring that sparkled like a road signal. And the second one was Ezekiel Choji, a former government worker who enjoyed speaking as though each statement bore an official mark. Pam Sun cleared his throat and started without approval. "Madam Nan, time is a very elusive element. If we postpone too much, it will drop into a drain. So I am here to preserve time. You are 45, and I am kind. So let us assist one another before the opportunity shuts." The room became quiet in astonishment, and Mimido, who had just arrived, nearly choked on her amusement. Neret lifted one eyebrow and inquired in a very naive tone, "Sir, are you proposing, or are you promoting an umbrella?" Pam Sun blinked. "I am only being practical." Neret grinned and responded, "Practicality should be clothed. Yours arrived too exposed." Right at that moment, Rhoda pinched her arm. "Be courteous, Neret." Ezekiel adjusted his spectacles and chose to portray himself like a retirement perk. "Madam Nan, I am an uncomplicated man. I have a pension. I have property somewhere near Bukuru, and I require companionship. In fact, I will not bother you. You can continue your stitching, but just don't bother me with the sound while I sit and peruse my newspaper." Neret nodded reflectively and inquired, "Sir, who will bother whom first, your snoring or my equipment?" But Ezekiel grinned with pride and stated, "I don't snore. I only inhale with a purpose." Mimido chuckled so boisterously that even the drape trembled. Well, just when Neret believed the procession was finished, Magna entered and declared that one last visitor was still arriving. Before they could utter anything, Brother Bulis, an enthusiastic worship director who held a Bible like a horn, came in. He sat seriously and stated, "Sister, the issue with you is lipstick. If you eliminate this earthly decoration, you'll be discovered by fate." Neret placed her hand on her chest and shook her head. "My goodness, so that is why the planet spins. It certainly can't remain stationary." Rhoda prodded her, "Sister, act properly now." But Neret shrugged. "I am acting better than my blood pressure." Amid all this, Mr. Dechung knocked, holding a small set of tools in his hand, and stated from the entrance, "I observe your rear door has a wobbly hinge, so I came to assist you repair it before it detaches entirely." The entire room became silent, because a man who repairs items without request is a wonder in every tongue. He greeted everybody courteously. Magna leaned toward Rhoda and shouted, "Do you see what I see?" Rhoda nodded eagerly. "I see a hinge and a future." Mimido placed both hands on her cheeks and nodded. "Neret, say thank you now." Neret, who was now both entertained and ashamed, rose and stated, "Mr. Dechung, thank you for your consideration. He grinned and proceeded to labor. Pamson observed this interaction with the expression of a man who had just ingested a lemon, but chose to regain his dignity swiftly. He rose, cleared his throat once more, and declared, "I am a man of means. If you accept me today, I will cover your store rent for 5 years." And Magna appeared thrilled, while Rhoda applauded gently. But Nerette raised her hand and stated kindly, "Sir, I am not a venture. I am an individual. If you desire to benefit a woman, let her be your spouse. If you desire to wed me, address my heart, not my rent." Ezekiel nodded as though she had cited the law, while Bulis shook his head like a let-down horn. When the males eventually departed, Magna walked back and forth in the living room and flung her hands upward. "My daughter, why do you turn away every assistance the Lord provides? You will be my downfall one day." Nerette let out a sigh and stated, "I don't want to be your downfall, Mama. I just want to be my own start." And Magna, who adored her eldest child, even when the girl prompted her to pray at unusual times, hugged her and stated, "You will not bear life by yourself. I'm here for you." That evening, DeChung completed the hinge and checked the door twice to confirm. When Nerette viewed it, she was pleased and informed him, "Thank you." DeChung nodded and stated, "If you require assistance transporting cloth from the market, I can offer you a lift occasionally." But before she could reply, Madame Kangyang appeared next to the window and proclaimed to the lizards, "Assistance is now circulating in this compound." That night, Rhoda came back to Nerette's home and feigned searching for something. But then she sat on the bed and inquired, "Do you like him?" Nerette was surprised by the inquiry, but after a lengthy silence, she stated, "I like that he's mild. I like that he repairs things. I like that he did not recoil when Mama inquired about marriage, but I'm scared of expecting too much and too quickly." Rhoda grinned and stated, "Hope can proceed gradually if you instruct it to." One morning, Nerette was seated in her store, stitching a green Ankara top for a customer. But her thoughts were distant from the material because, for 2 weeks now, Mr. DeChung, the new neighbor from Abuja, had been performing minor actions that disturb her emotions, like greeting her each morning with an exaggerated grin, proposing to carry her cloth packages whenever he spotted her at the market, assisting her in shifting her heavy sewing table without request, and the day he visited her store, he assisted her in repairing the faulty outlet when he saw it sparking. Nevertheless, he never spoke much or behaved boldly. But there was something about his demeanor that was serene, consistent, and compassionate. It evoked memories of a tune she used to adore as a teen, but had lost the words to. Naturally, her friend Mimido observed before anybody else. One afternoon, she rushed into Nerette's without notice. "Nerette, pal, clarify why I witnessed you this morning chuckling with Abuja bread beneath a mango tree. You, who assert that men exhaust you. I was astonished to see you radiant and chuckling like sunshine on a Monday morning." Nerette lifted an eyebrow without glancing up from her sewing. "Mimido, I chuckle daily. The Lord provided me with teeth to display them. Shall I dispatch him a note to withdraw the present?" Mimido pulled a stool, sat down, and crossed her legs in a theatrical way. This chuckling was distinct. This one conveyed significance. It is the type that journeys from the belly, ascends to the chest, then resides in the eyes. "Ah, Miss 45, are you descending, or have you descended?" Nerette set her scissors down gradually and turned to her friend. "Mimido, if you came to tally my grins, I will begin charging you 500 naira per evaluation." Mimido disregarded the warnings and leaned nearer like a marketplace rumor monarch. "You know, Madame Kangyang has already issued headlines, right? She informed the females at the water source that Abuja has infiltrated Miss 45's veins. She even stated you have begun rehearsing honeymoon chuckling." Nerette erupted into amusement. "Honeymoon chuckling, Mimido? Truly, they should establish a small broadcast station for that lady and compensate her. Her ability is being squandered." Regrettably, while she jested, the whispers were circulating in the Yam area of Faringata Market. 2 females feigned disputing over tomato costs, but they were actually talking about her. At church, the choir director leaned over during rehearsal and whispered, Sister Neret's presence is shining these days. And somebody responded very swiftly, love is a highly hydrating element. Even her mother, Magnapal, began acting oddly. She phoned one evening, using a pleasant tone that made Neret instantly wary. Offspring of my body, how are you this pleasant evening? Neret narrowed her eyes at the device. Mama, why are you addressing me as if you aimed to sell me a plot of ground? Magna overlooked her and proceeded directly to the matter. I heard Brother DeChung comes from a respectable family, and he addresses people very nicely. Does he consume tuoacha? We must learn these details early. I am intending to visit him and address him appropriately. Neret almost let the phone fall. Mama, please don't humiliate me now. Don't bring Cola Nut and our family background to his entrance. We are neighbors, nothing further. Magna let out a theatrical sigh. If I abandon you, this girl, you will convert this chance into a workout. 45 years, Neret, grow wings and join the angels before experiencing marriage. Before Neret could reply, a knock occurred at the door, and when she opened it, Mr. DeChung himself was standing there, holding a small container of fresh strawberries. I spotted this on my return journey. I thought you might enjoy them, so I obtained some for you. Before she could express thanks, Magna, who was still on the call, shouted, Is that his voice I detect? Connect him to the line right away. Neret terminated the call and whispered, This is why the Lord conceals blessings from certain families, because we cannot simply remain silent. That same evening, Neret discovered herself seated on the porch with DeChung, drinking kunu quietly. They discussed various topics, the unreliable power supply, the erratic climate, and the cost of onions at the market. His tone was serene, and for the first time in years, Neret sensed that someone was conversing with her without assessing her age or ridiculing her status. But regrettably, she didn't savor that tranquility for long, not when she had other jealous admirers. One Sunday morning, she participated in a service focused on singles at Hilltop Chapel, where Pastor Bulis, a gentleman who thought his microphone was a private horn, declared theatrically, Today, the Spirit has identified one obstinate sister who has declined to heed the summons of fate. Neret's heart leaped. Pastor Bulis walked the stage like a man pursuing demons with a rod. He thundered into the microphone. Sister Neret Pal, step forward. The assembly inhaled sharply in unison, and someone remarked loudly, The revelation has arrived. Neret remained immobile for a moment. Then gradually she rose and proceeded down the path as individuals conversed around her. 45 years, and still miss? Ah, this liberation must be potent. Let's observe how she will flee now. Pastor Bulis grinned devoutly and positioned one hand on her shoulder. Sister Neret, the Lord declares postponement is not rejection. We must shatter the essence of marital blockage right here, right now. Neret leaned nearer, grinned charmingly, and murmured into his ear, Pastor, kindly recall this is a church, not Netflix. Don't initiate a show you cannot conclude. But Pastor Bulis, who was intoxicated by microphone authority, lifted his hand theatrically and proclaimed, Church, extend your hands toward our sister. Say, marriage, arrive by fire. Half the assembly yelled, while the other half concealed their amusement behind their songbooks. As for Neret, she gulped hard, pivoted, and marched directly out of the church, leaving the pastor invoking over vacant space. By the time she arrived at the compound, the whisper had already developed momentum. Pastor pursued Miss 45 with sacred water, but she fled. Well, that was not everything, however, because Pam Sundong, the conceited merchant she turned down during the admirer gathering, chose to strike back at the Monday market. He rested on a stand filled with yams and declared loudly, I feel sorry for 45. She desired me, but I declined her because my criteria are elevated. Now she's pursuing Abuja males to conceal her reputation. The females slapped their hands theatrically, and one individual shouted, Ah, Pam Sun, respect God. But most individuals chuckled, and by that afternoon, it had arrived at the compound. That evening, Neret strode into the market, located Pam's son boasting before 5 males, and she stated loudly enough for the motorcycle riders to overhear, "Mr. Pam's son, thank you for declining me. Oh, if you had agreed, I would be confined within your pants, smoothing conceit daily. God has truly utilized you to liberate me." The whole line of vendors burst into amusement. Pamson's expression crumpled like a wrinkled garment, and from that day, he ceased distributing accounts about declining her. When Mimido learned about what occurred, she visited Nerette that night. "Nerette, pal, did you truly utter that? This your tongue will not access heaven straightaway. They will assess it at the entrances." Nerette sneered and responded, "I am certain heaven has a dedicated fast track for females who endured 45 years of being unmarried." For weeks, Nerette and Dechung relished a very sound companionship despite the indirect comments from neighbors, until the largest tale that rattled the basis of their bond emerged. She was in her store, laboring on garments, when Madame Kanyang, the unchallenged director of urgent news, rushed into her store without wrapping, inhaling rapidly as if she had found petroleum in her yard. "Nerette, pal. So you aim to shame us." Nerette scowled and set her fastener down cautiously, because practice had instructed her to never confront rumor mongers with pointed items in her grasp. "Madame Kanyang, good morning. Do you wish to request a top or a casket? Because the vigor you are displaying resembles that of a funeral. Disregard greeting." Madame Kanyang made a hissing sound and crossed her arms. "We just learned something directly from Abuja. Your beloved Mr. Dechung, the silent one you've been grinning with privately, they claim he's betrothed to one influential lady there. Betrothal, and their nuptials is in 3 months." For a moment, Nerette believed her ears were failing, so she chuckled, "I plead, sorry, please. Madame Kanyang, just return to the origin and gather accurate details. Dechung converses with me daily. If he had a betrothed, I would be aware." But Madame Kanyang expanded her eyes like someone preparing to convey a vision. "No comments. These Abuja males who can possess 2 residences, 3 partners, and 4 mysteries. We cautioned you, at 35 years you are still gathering sorrow. This one will become part of the curriculum." Before Nerette could reply, Mimido emerged like the messenger of theater, holding Puff Puff and scowling doubtfully. "What is happening?" Madame Kanyang turned to her with delight. "Inquire of your friend. Her Abuja bread has an entire lady awaiting in Abuja." Nerette has been trying out for the role of second spouse without realizing. Mimido inhaled sharply. "Jesu Christi. Nerette, if this is accurate, I will personally arrange a abstinence initiative for your romantic existence." Another sorrow. Nerette disregarded her, rose calmly, brushed her hands, and stated in a tone that astonished even her, "Rumors are complimentary, but tranquility is costly. Well, I select the costly one. Good day, Madame Kanyang." But her emotions were already wounded. That evening, she sat by herself in the lounge, gazing at the sky through the window. Then she detected a knock on her door. She opened it, and there he was, Mr. Dechung, appearing weary but grinning. "Nerette, are you available to converse?" She crossed her arms and rested against the entrance frame. "Are you betrothed, Mr. Dechung?" His grin disappeared, and he paused for an instant before replying, "I was, but I am not any longer." Nerette scowled. "You were, and you didn't consider it essential to inform me?" Dechung let out a deep sigh and then sat on a little seat there. "It concluded 3 months ago. I discovered her with another person. That was why I departed Abuja, to begin anew, not to engage in tricks. I intended to inform you when I was prepared, but," he motioned toward the compound, "this location doesn't even permit confidential discussions." Nerette gazed at him for an extended period, and her emotions mellowed despite her self-respect. Nevertheless, before she could respond, Rhoda, her theatrical younger sibling, rushed onto the porch hastily and declared out of breath, "Sister, Mama dispatched me. She said I should inform you that Pastor Bulis learned the whisper, and he is organizing an urgent prayer session for your recovery." Nerette pressed her fingers to her forehead and whispered, "Lord, if I endure this family, I merit reimbursement." Dechung cleared his throat lightly. I can depart if I'm causing issues. But Neret turned to him and stated, Dechung, issues have been residing here before you arrived. You're simply contributing to its upkeep now. For the first time that day, she chuckled, and he chuckled as well. Regrettably, the amusement did not endure long because Pam Sun Dong, the declined admirer with resentment, was still active and wandering. One Saturday morning, the property owner summoned a compound gathering. The subject was water donation, but somehow it transformed into a public discussion about Neret's private affairs because Pam Sun Dong, the ambulatory loudspeaker, a non-resident and unsolicited visitor, stumbled into the gathering like a misplaced animal and declared, My fellow local residents, this originates from a worried individual. Oh, we must safeguard our compound from sorrow essences. Miss 45 has been presenting herself like the ultimate spouse candidate. Meanwhile, a Buja man arrived here and utilized her to practice betrothal number 2. The group began whispering. Madame Kongyong clutched her chest theatrically. You would assume they declared rent hikes. Right at that moment, Neret rose, straightened her top, and advanced into the center of the group. Her tone was courteous and not courteous simultaneously. Pam Sun, thank you for your ongoing concern in my fate, but I hereby free you from the load of considering me every morning. You are now liberated to concentrate on your animals, your yam storage, and your unsettled obligations. The compound burst into amusement. Pamson's mouth opened and shut like a defective pain. But before he could recuperate, Mr. Dechung stood from his seat and spoke for the initial time. He indicated and surveyed the area. For the record, I am not betrothed, and I am not practicing anyone's nuptials. I arrived here to commence a fresh existence. And yes, she merits respect and not rumors. The quietness that ensued after that address was dense enough to slice with a seamstress's cutters. Madame Kongyong ingested gradually, and her gaze shifted between them. At last, the property owner cleared his throat and proclaimed, If this gathering does not conclude now, we will discover ourselves delving into a nuptial expenditure right here. By evening, the compound had changed entirely. If there was rumor before, now there was interest. And if there was ridicule before, now there were courteous grins. Even Madame Kongyong herself went by Neret's door without an indirect remark, which was the most evident indication of a wonder since the creation of power. 3 months afterward, during the magnificent launch of Neret's enlarged store, which she retitled Pal Thread Fashion Academy, the whole neighborhood assembled. There was kunu, masa, meat pie, and tunes playing from Mimido's meticulously assembled collection. And then, to everybody's astonishment, Mr. Dechung advanced to the middle of the store and turned to Neret. Neret, pal, you are not Miss 45. You are Neret, a resilient, intelligent, and compassionate lady, full of radiance. If you permit me, I would like to remain with you, gradually and tolerantly, with no theater and no urgency. For an instant, everybody held their respiration. Then Mimido declared loudly, Say yes before Pam Sun collapses in envy. Neret grinned, gazed at Dechung, and stated, Yes, but let us proceed, not sprint. The cheers that ensued echoed through the store like abrupt lightning, and for the first time in many years, the designation Miss 45 no longer pertained to Neret. She had discovered something superior to rumors or retaliation. Thank you for viewing the tale. Kindly express your opinions about the tale with me in the remark area. Give the tale a thumbs up and distribute the tale with your dear ones. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so yet. Until I present another tale your way, bye.